The masked superstar didn't do friendship. He did business. Cold, calculated, and behind a hood that didn't just hide his face, it hid the fact that he genuinely despised half the locker room. Bill Eadie wasn't some cartoon villain. He was a stretch-you-out, spine-folding technician with a brain under that mask and a receipt book longer than a Flair alimony bill. He didn't drink with the boys, didn't kiss promoter backsides, and if you pulled some unprofessional nonsense near him, you were done. No warnings, no drama, just quiet, surgical resentment. This wasn't about gimmick heat. These were real-life Cold Wars with guys he couldn't stand. Selfish clowns, unprofessional meatheads, and arrogant egos who thought mask meant meek. It didn't. It meant mean. Meaner than a tax audit during a thunderstorm with 4 flat tires. He wore a grudge like a second mask, stitched from receipts, sealed with spite, reinforced with cold-blooded silence. Every wrong move stayed with him, fueling the fire beneath the mask. Let's rip it off and name 5 he truly deeply loathed, names he never forgot. Ken Patera wasn't just a former Olympic weightlifter. He was a walking wrecking ball with the social skills of a rusty chainsaw. And Bill Eadie? He hated that guy like a bad rash. Sources like Wrestling Shoot interviews and the notorious Ken versus Eadie locker room run-ins paint a picture of constant friction. One story has Eadie snapping after Ken's usual loudmouth antics, calling him out for being an unprofessional bully who thought the wrestling world was his personal weight room. The real kicker? Patera had a rep for stirring shit backstage, testing everyone's patience, including the masked superstars. Eadie wasn't the type to pick fights, but when you poke the bear with a barbell, don't expect mercy. It was less about jealousy, more about principle. Patera's loud, aggressive bullshit clashed hard with Eadie's no-nonsense business-first mindset. You don't see Eadie throw tantrums, but Patera pushed him close enough to nearly lose it. In short, Ken Patera was that annoying gym bro who thinks he's the king, but is just the loudest moron in the locker room, and Bill Eadie was not here for that shit. If Ken Patera was the loudmouth jock, then Hercules Hernandez was the delusional gym rat who thought flexing counted as psychology. And Bill Eadie? He couldn't stand the bastard. Eadie came from the school of timing, craft, and doing shit that actually made sense in a ring. Hercules came from the school of stand still and look swollen. Every time they crossed paths, Georgia, WWF, you name it, Eadie smelled the same thing, insecurity covered in baby oil. What drove him nuts wasn't just Hercules' limited moveset. It was the attitude. Herc thought he was on the same level as the masked superstar. You know, the guy who could actually work a match without blowing up in 3 minutes or needing to gorilla press the mailman to stay relevant. Eadie saw through that roid-pumped swagger like it was tracing paper. According to longtime WWF agents and shoot interviews with other veterans, including Eadie's own rare commentary, there was always heat. Herc would big league people backstage, puff out his chest, and act like a headliner, even while delivering promos that sounded like a stroke set to music. Eadie hated that fake tough guy energy. Herc was the kind of dude who'd snarl at enhancement talent but go quiet when a real shooter walked by. Bill didn't yell, he just judged. And the judgment on Hercules? Full-on contempt. One former ref recalled a night in Philly where Eadie refused to tag in until Herc calmed his shit down mid-match. He was flexing for the crowd like it was Mr. Olympia, the ref said. Bill just stood on the apron, arms crossed, like, "You done?" It wasn't about a single fight. It was about everything Hercules represented. Ego without merit, muscles without message, spotlight without substance. Bill Eadie didn't hate the body. He hated the bullshit inside it. Bill Eadie didn't hate gimmicks. He wore one. But he did hate circus acts who never shut the fuck up. And that's exactly what the Iron Sheik was. A one-man meltdown parade in pointy shoes, spitting venom in dumb takes like it was cardio. Behind the scenes, Sheik wasn't some misunderstood mad genius. He was a goddamn liability. Loud, reckless, unpredictable, and chemically enhanced like a 90s vending machine. Eadie couldn't stand him. Not just because Sheik was a walking powder keg, but because he brought nothing to the locker room except chaos and coke dust. Multiple shoot interviews, Duggan, B. Brian Blair, all confirmed Sheik was a pain in the ass to travel with, tag with, or even breathe near. Eadie didn't suffer fools, and Sheik was a whole caravan. Where Eadie was calm, focused, and surgical, Sheik was a full-on fucking tantrum in tassels. He'd insult people backstage, shout shoot threats at everyone, and brag about breaking backs and making people humble while forgetting the headlock he botched 5 minutes earlier. That act didn't impress Eadie. It repulsed him. Sources close to both men said their heat was ice cold. No blow-ups, no shouting, just pure, permanent disdain. Eadie would walk into a room Sheik was in, clock the nonsense within 3 seconds, and mentally check out. They never worked a real program. Why? Because Eadie refused to waste time or neck ligaments on a liability like that. He saw Sheik for what he was, a loud, dangerous parody of his own worst promo. Not a technician, not a professional, just a clown with a camel and a short fuse. Bill didn't need to scream at Sheik. The silence was louder. It said, "You're not worth it." And Sheik? He probably screamed anyway. If wrestling locker rooms had fire alarms, Jimmy Snuka would have been the permanent trigger. And Bill Eadie? He didn't just keep his distance, he treated Snuka like toxic waste in leopard print. Snuka wasn't just unpredictable, he was a goddamn hazard. Drugged out, zoned out, and always seconds away from either a crying fit or a fistfight. Eadie, a no-nonsense ring general who treated wrestling like a job, saw Snuka for what he was, chaos in boots, and Bill hated chaos. Shoot interviews from George Steele, Tito Santana, and especially backstage hands paint a picture of Snuka as the kind of guy who'd forget his spots, disappear mid-show, or show up so cooked he couldn't lace his boots straight. Eadie didn't think that was charisma, he thought it was bullshit. And here's the real heat. Snuka's popularity didn't just overshadow talent, it insulted it. Eadie, one of the most consistent professional workers in the business, watched a barely coherent Snuka stumble through matches while being treated like a demigod. That didn't sit well, at all. Word from WWF insiders says Eadie straight up requested not to be booked near Snuka whenever possible. The few times they were forced to interact, it was business only, no eye contact, no banter. Snuka lived in his own foggy world, but Eadie saw right through it and wanted nothing to do with it. Snuka might have flown high, but behind the curtain, he crashed every relationship he touched. Drugs, ego, erratic behavior, it all made him locker room poison. And for Bill Eadie, poison didn't get second chances. No blowout, no brawl. Just quiet, simmering loathing, the kind that doesn't fade. The masked superstar didn't trust Snuka in the ring. He trusted him even less outside it. This was the big one. Not a scuffle. Not a misunderstanding. A full-blown Cold War that never thawed. Bill Eadie didn't just dislike Dusty Rhodes. He resented everything the man stood for. Dusty was the ultimate wrestling politician. Loud, flashy, dripping with charisma, and completely convinced of his own hype. Eadie, on the other hand, was a worker's worker. Precision, pacing, professionalism. He didn't care if you could talk a dog off a meat truck. If you couldn't wrestle, he didn't respect you. And to him, Dusty was all glitter and no grind. The heat between them started in the Georgia days when Dusty booked himself into every main event like it was divine right. Eadie was over, not by politics, but performance. But Dusty had the pencil, and that pencil didn't like threats. Multiple sources, including Jody Hamilton and other Crockett-era vets, confirm Eadie was routinely passed over for top programs because Dusty saw him as too serious, code for too damn good. Eadie wasn't a backstage whiner, but he noticed. Dusty was the kind of guy who'd give himself the world title, then act surprised when no one clapped. They weren't oil and water, they were dignity and delusion. One infamous backstage moment reportedly had Eadie refusing to do an angle Dusty pushed that made the masked superstar look like a jabroni. He didn't yell, he didn't plead, he just folded his arms and said, "No." That was Eadie's way, silent but immovable. Dusty spun it, of course. Claimed Eadie wasn't a team player. Translation, he wouldn't eat shit with a spoon just because Dusty called it caviar. Eadie never went public with the grudge. He didn't have to. Everyone knew. You could see it in his eyes every time Dusty walked in. No fear, no respect, just quiet contempt. The American dream? To Eadie, he was just a loud nightmare who booked himself like a god and worked like a guy who hadn't seen his own boots in years. The mask was just a layer. Underneath it, a man who clocked bullshit from a mile out and kept receipts like holy scripture. He didn't scream, didn't swing, didn't gossip. He remembered, he watched, and he never forgave. These weren't petty beefs. They were battle lines, drawn in silence, the kind of grudges you don't shout about. Because shouting's for amateurs, real hate just lingers. So if you ever wondered why the masked superstar never broke character, it's because he didn't need to. The mask never cracked. But trust me, the patience underneath it did. Like and subscribe. If you like your wrestling stories unfiltered and your grudges colder than a taxman's heart, hit that like button and subscribe. No fluff, no fairy tales. Just masked fury, real heat, and the kind of shoot venom that could curdle protein shakes. Stick around. The next body drop's coming fast.